Hi, everyone. Welcome to the UCT Women in Law in collaboration with the Institute for African Women in Law webinar titled From Law Student to Lawyer, Making the Transition. I am Caitlin Schultz. I am the head of mentorship for the UCT Women in Law Society, and I will be your moderator today. On our panel, we have Ms. Belinda Mapongwana. She is the founder and director of Mapongwana Attorneys in South Africa. We have Professor Emilia Onyema. She is the Professor of International Commercial Law at SOAS, University of London. And we have Magistrate Winfred Kyobiika from the Judiciary in Uganda. Just some housekeeping before we begin. If you have any questions, please put it in the Q&A function, and we will answer those questions after the panelists have had a moment to speak a bit later on in the webinar. You are welcome to please engage in the chat and put this on social media, on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Please tag the Institute for African Women in Law, and please, if you're on Instagram, tag UCT Women in Law. All questions will have to go through the Q&A box. We won't be doing any vocal questions, and the only people that can raise hands is the panelists. With that being said, I would like to begin. For all of our panelists, I would like everyone to please introduce yourself and briefly give us a career background and tell us what inspired you to choose your career path. Could we maybe start with you, Emilia?
Thank you very much, Caitlin, and thanks to the IAWL for the invitation to share some thoughts, and to my fellow panelists, thanks for the invitation. So I think the question you've asked is to give a brief career background and what inspired me to be a lawyer. My father said I should study law. In my time, your parents basically look at your characteristics and they can tell you what to study, and you obeyed them and you studied what they asked you to study. And it was simply because I talked too much. And so he says, it would be great for you to be a lawyer. So, and I think he was right. I've only been a lawyer all my life, and I've thoroughly had a very good ride.
Great, thank you so much for that. Winfred, would you like to go next, please? Just an introduction, your background, and tell us what inspired you.
Thank you very much, Caitlin, and thank you, fellow panelists, for tuning in. Thank you for the invite. What motivated me to be a lawyer? I'm the firstborn child of my parents, and I can say I've always been a deputy parent at home. I remember growing up, kind of adjudicating or resolving disputes amongst my siblings and kids in the neighborhood. So I think as a child, I got a sense of fairness and justice very early on. And yeah, I mean, being a magistrate or a judicial officer, it helps me hand out fairness and justice directly. So yeah, I think the sense of fairness and justice motivated me to become a lawyer.
Great, thank you so much. Belinda, can we please have your introduction, your background?
Thank you very much, and thank you very much to the Institute for inviting me, and thank you to the fellow panelists and all the people who have joined. I became a lawyer because similarly to my fellow panelists, I think for me it was a combination of both. I used to ask a lot of questions, but also growing up in South Africa during the years of apartheid, I was motivated to fight for justice. And so that was one of the driving factors for me. But law has always been a childhood dream of mine. In fact, I'm the one who told my grandmother at the time that I want to be a lawyer. So for me, it was different to the prof, that the prof was told by her dad. I told my grandmother that that's what I would be. And so I've only ever done law, and I'm still very passionate about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ladies. That is really inspiring, I'm sure, to many of us here. Emilia, you are in academia, a professor in London. Could you please tell us how and why you got into academia? And if you could please give us some key pointers that us as students should consider if we would like to follow the academic path.
Thank you very much again, Caitlin. So my own trajectory, when I qualified in the late 1980s, I qualified as a barrister in Nigeria. I'm Nigerian, and I practiced law for 11 years before I. So I was, I was an advocate and all of that, but I then got bored and tired, and so I actually just took a sabbatical. I took a 1 year of my legal practice just to refigure what I wanted to do next. And I had several options in front of me, whether to go in-house. Academia was not one of the options, or just the idea with a sabbatical, it is almost like an extended period of retreat for you to rethink your career and what you wanted to do. I then did the LLM and somehow got coerced into doing a PhD, since I still hadn't made up my mind. Before I then qualified, before the PhD, I qualified as a solicitor here in the UK, in England, and I started doing the PhD. It was in the second year of the PhD that I started teaching as a graduate teaching assistant. And I got my mojo back. I think that's the way they say it. I got my joy back. And I just knew that I enjoyed the idea of research and teaching. And so I finished my PhD. I then said to myself, well, the idea wasn't to relocate. The idea was just to figure out what I wanted to do next. And my father always said that if you were not practicing as an advocate, you were really not a lawyer. The reason why you qualify is so that you can go and be defending people in court. And so it was quite difficult saying to him that I think I may want to explore academia. And so what I did was I just said to myself, the first place I get a job, it's one of those left, right, okay, yes, the right one has it. And wherever the first place I get a job, I would take it. And SOAS offered me a permanent position. So I was already teaching at Queen Mary, where I did my PhD. And I got a permanent job at SOAS, and I've been here since then. So that's how I got into academia. On advice for our students who may be thinking of academia, that was that was 17 years ago. And so the key thing to bear in mind is that there's been so much more progress done that even at that time, you do need to have a PhD. So I think graduate studies, being very clear and understanding how to do research and actually enjoying to do that might be an indicator of something that might be of interest. I still think you still have to try things out to be sure you actually enjoy them before you sign up to doing that. Caitlin.
Thank you, Emilia. That's really helpful. Just some more housekeeping for those who have just joined us. Please engage in the chat function. We have some conversations going on there. Tell us where you're from. And then please, if you take any snapshots of this, please tag IAWL on all social media platforms, tag UCT Women in Law on Instagram. And yeah, please encourage your friends to join. They may still register throughout the event. And once again, if you have any questions, please use the Q&A feature, and we will round back to that a bit later on. Yes, Winfred, you were first a lawyer before joining the judiciary. So could you please tell us what motivated you to join the judiciary, and what skills should a law student develop to be a successful lawyer and magistrate?
Thank you very much, Kathleen. What motivated me to join the judiciary? I think, like Emilia, whatever is available to me is what I took. I, however, would want to say that I worked as a lawyer in a law firm, and the managing partner was, I took him as my mentor. And while we were talking about my career plan, he advised me that I would fare very well in government because government offers me maybe a clearer career plan. It has opportunities for growth and also supporting professional development. It's more clearer in government than in private sector. So when an advert came out in my country, they advertised for these placements in the judiciary. When it came out, he supported me to apply and gave me a reference and prepped me for the interview, actually. So I just want to say, as a young person in my early 20s, I just took the advice of the person who I looked up to, who I thought they knew more about the legal industry than I did at the time. And to answer the second part of the question on what skills should a student develop to be a successful lawyer and magistrate or stroke judicial officer, I think the first one I could come up with is you should never stop to learn, to like learning. You should always be interested in learning. Personally, I'm a researcher and a published author, and I find that this interest in researching and learning helps me keep abreast to the new developments in the law. The law has totally changed, I believe, from the time I left law school a decade ago, but I believe things have changed. We have things like cybercrime now. It's emerging. We have trafficking, it's emerging. If you're not reading and interested in reading, you are not going to keep abreast with the developments in the law. So the first skill I would want to say is that know how to read and research and write. The second one is management. You have to be a good manager of resources, time, a manager of time, a manager of people, a manager of yourself. Also, the self-management. Once you get this management of resources, management of who you are, it gets a bit easier. You get to get your career mapped out easily. You get your interests aligned, and you let go of things that will weigh you down in your career early on. Yeah, so those two things are the things I would want to share today. Never stop learning, and also get that managerial skills in self-management, people, time, and all other resources that you have before you.
Thank you so much, Winfred, for that really practical advice. Belinda, you have experience at the UN OHCHR. So that's the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights. Based on that, could you please tell us what the importance is of internships and voluntary work when one is studying or searching for employment?
Thanks, Kathleen. It's very important. I'll tell you a brief story about how I got to the UN OHCHR Human Rights Commission. I was actually doing my master's in Amsterdam, and one of the courses that I took was children's rights. In fact, it was when I was graduating, it was announced to the audience that I was a very, very I guess, excited student because I took more courses than what I was required to pass my LLM. And one of those courses was children's rights, which was not something aligned with what I had studied, because I've always been focused in commercial law, but I was just interested. And there was we had a visiting lecturer from Chicago who was lecturing us, and I, during the course of the elective, I said to her, I would love to go to the UN to go and see how the legislations, how the policies that govern all of this, how children, children's rights throughout the world. I would love to go and see that firsthand. And then she said to me, why don't you? And because I'm a very curious person, I then went onto the website, I applied, and I got accepted into the program. And in terms of how important it was, I think the first step is to just be open to the fact that there could be another, there could be opportunities there. And I didn't set out to go and, see what opportunities were there. I just set out to understand how policy making regarding children's rights is made. What I can tell you in terms of, obviously now that the benefit of hindsight, was that it was probably one of the best things that I've done. Because of the network, the people that I met there. So I'll have you know that you do not get paid when you go to the Office of the Human Rights. It's a purely voluntary internship of 3 months of living in a very expensive country in Switzerland, in Geneva. And but because of the network, the learnings, the knowledge that you gain is invaluable. I'm still friends with the people that I met at the UN 20 years ago. We are still friends. We visit each other. They come to South Africa. And that experience, that network, the fact that your mind will be opened so much, stretch yourself so much, is invaluable. So I would really encourage that it's not necessary that you will go and do the voluntary work in the UN like me, but any opportunity that you would see, whether it's in your country, whether it's in the continent, whether it's not in the continent, global, the world has become such a village now. Take it, because it may not be like me, aligned with the core of what you do, which is corporate law, but everything eventually comes together. And that's one of the things that I learned as well.
Thank you so much. That's really, really powerful. I'm very inspired right now. Just a reminder to everyone again, please post this on social media, tag IAWL, and if it's on Instagram, please also tag UCT Women in Law and engage in the chat. We'd love to see how you're enjoying it, and please don't forget to ask questions in the Q&A box. Emilia, do you have any suggestions for students who would like to specialize in arbitration?
A couple of suggestions. Yes, I would share some of those, and maybe I would ask students to also broaden that out. And these are suggestions that you can apply in any area of the law. I think these days, there's a lot of specialization going on across various sectors, and the law is not an exception. And so to sort of think about it and think about, my view is think about what is it that you're passionate about. So we just heard from Belinda what her passion was and how that influenced what she saw and what she was interested in and pursued. I think it's important. What is it that you are interested in? I think that you should also think of jurisdiction. Where do you want to practice this thing that you are particularly interested in? I don't believe that everybody must leave the continent. I don't believe that. It's strange when I say that, because of course I live and work in London. But I worked for a very long time on the continent. Like I said, I'm Nigerian. And we need to think about it. Your passion can also influence the jurisdiction wherein you want to practice that passion. The other thing is, what are your strengths? So we've talked about passion. What are your interests as a person? When I was in studying law, I never liked family law. And it was just simply because it was too emotional, and it engages your emotion. And so I knew that I'm not cut out for criminal law, family law, those sorts of very emotional and type of law, of substantive law. And so all my life, I've only been a commercial lawyer. It's easier for me to deal with because companies are inanimate objects. They impact on our lives, so I can engage with that. So I think it's important to think of your strengths, think of what your weaknesses are. And I think that we need to step back and you find what is your own definition of success in your career. And so sometimes we get caught up in this whole idea of, oh, I must become a professor, or I must become the managing partner, or I must become this, I must become that, just because we think that that is what the environment around us that's what they tell us. But who are you and what do you want? There's absolutely nothing wrong if you determine that, okay, I want to go into academia. I want to build a family first. That is fine, because that is what makes you happy. That is your interest, and you're adding value to humanity. You do that. But when you finish and your kids can go to school and all of that, don't then get stuck in just being at home, because there's so much more you can offer society. And so you can always rethink your career at any point in time. Life can be in phases. I think that's really important. Last thing I would say is that do loads of research. Find out what is new. Where do we have gaps? What is new? There's a lot on ESG. There's a lot happening on technology and the environment, climate change, health. There's so much more happening. So you do need to do research and find what is it that speaks to you. Then the last thing you need to research on is who are the people that occupy that space that you admire. Reach out to them. You can reach out on LinkedIn. You can reach out and send an email and say, I'm a final year student. I'm interested in arbitration. I've looked at your profile and it looks like you're doing quite well as an international arbitrator, as an African woman in international arbitration. I would be grateful if I can get 10, 15 minutes of your time over Zoom. You be the, go ahead and make those appointments. And you will be surprised that people will be willing to give you their time to have that conversation with you. And so to get into arbitration, which is what I was asked to speak to, the key thing really with arbitration is there's several different roles in arbitration. You can be an arbitrator, so the decision maker. You can be counsel, and you can be tribunal secretary. You can do research, you can teach, you can work in an arbitration administration center, so an institution, so or a membership organization. And so the key thing is you might ask yourself, what aspect of this arbitration am I particularly interested in? One of the routes that people who want to become arbitrators or who end up becoming arbitrators is through law firms, either as counsel, law firms that do arbitrations. Another route is academia, but it's like becoming a senior academic and showing that this is what I'm interested in. And people find you because you've published, they know about your work, they see you at conferences, they listen to you speak, and things like that. And they're willing to take that chance on you and make that appointment. You can also look for a mentor who would be happy to mentor you in arbitration, and then they can suggest your name. You work with them. And so those are some of the ways of whichever career path you're looking at that you can think about and you can adopt. And there are lots of women that occupy various spaces that are willing and happy to support and help our younger female colleagues coming up. Caitlin, sorry, I think I spoke too long. Apologies. Caitlin.
No, not at all. Thank you so much for your insight. That was really valuable. I'm sure all of us really appreciated that. Winfred, as a magistrate, I'm sure you've had many challenges in your career journey. Could you please tell us more about them and how you handled them?
Thank you again, Caitlin. Challenges, yes, I have. I can write a book about them. I've had quite many, but I'll begin with one, imposter syndrome. I became a magistrate at age 25. And I remember then I was a very small girl. I'm so short. I remember appearing in court and everyone is like, is that the magistrate? My English hadn't yet been polished then. I would even most of the time use slang from law school, which wasn't proper for such a traditional career that I'd taken. I was quite scared. I was quite scared as a young girl then. I was scared about the lawyers who were appearing before me. Some of them had been my lecturers in law school. Of course, yes, when the elderly were coming to court, I'll be like, these are the people who are supposed to give me wisdom. And here I am trying to resolve disputes. So early on, I faced imposter syndrome. How did I overcome that? Surprisingly, there are people who believed in me. There are people who believed in that naive person, in that person who just wanted to be fair, who just wanted to be just. I told you earlier about the managing partner that pushed me to join the judiciary. Earlier on in my career, he held me and supported me and told me, you can do it. You've read so many books, you know, and if you don't know anything, you can always call us upon and we'll be able to assist you where you can. So he really supported me, but even my first supervisor was a very good mentor. He had those Friday coffees with me in the evening and it's like, how was your week? How are things going? And then you'll be like, oh my God, I fear the lawyers. They are so old. Sometimes I feel terrified in court. And he would be like, but they've come to you. The reason why they've come is because you have the power, you know, you have the political power to make the decision. So don't get scared. They believe in you. And for me with that, I slowly but surely got that imposter syndrome off. I can't say it has gone away. In other areas of life where I am just putting my step forward, it still comes back. But like then I have realized to look out for people who believe in me, who can push me and support me to move forward. The other challenge that I have, I think I still have it now because it's never ending, it's still going on, is balancing family and my work life. I'm a young mother to very, very little children. And I honestly would want to be in their life. I want to watch them grow. I want to pick them from school. I want to spend the Saturday mornings with them, Sunday, you know. However, I have also a busy schedule. I work away from home. By the fact that I work in government, I'm supposed to be deployed to serve anywhere in the country. So that means that I have to live away from my family. I do consultancies on the side. So those take up, apart from my 8 to 5, those also take up my time. But I also do volunteering in the different alumni organizations that I subscribe to. And that part of my career can get busy sometimes. And I struggle as a person to balance, okay, what should I prioritize right now, you know? That is still something I'm going through. I can't say I've gotten the gist of it, but I am happy about the support system I have created around myself, a supporting partner, my family, you know, like my mother, I can call her up. I'm like, oh, mommy, can you have the children this evening? I'm going for this meeting, you know. My sisters are always happy to help me out with the children. They go for sleepovers when I'm so busy. But I also have to pay, you know, sometimes they're like, oh, also you, now it's your turn to take care of our children. Yeah, so for me, having that support system has helped me as a young mother. But then also that support system does not help me in childcare. They are also a sounding board for me in different decisions that I have to make. If I'm doing a consultancy and I need some knowledge that I do not have, like let's say I'm doing data analysis, I have people in my network who can do that and their family. So I always ask them, you know, I'm just a lawyer. Could you support me with data analysis? Could you support me with this? So using my family and friends to help me with either care work or help me with the kind of work that I'm doing professionally is something that I've used to overcome my challenges as I go on in my career path. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think a few of us are in awe that you were a magistrate at so young, when so many of us are still studying at that age, and that you just managed to do it all and be so successful. Wow. Just another gentle reminder to everyone to please use the Q&A box for questions, as questions will likely get lost in the chat, and we will try to get to as many of those questions as possible in a bit. Belinda, you very impressively own your own law firm. Could you please talk to us about the transition from practicing law at another company to your own firm? And if you could also highlight some of the challenges you faced, and yeah, if you could give any advice to entrepreneurial law students who would like to start their own firms one day. Belinda, you are on mute, sorry.
So I'm unmuted now. So I started my firm from a bank, not from another law firm. And the significance of that is that I started the firm without any clients. So it was my first client who asked me, so what were you thinking? Starting a law firm without a client. And I confidently said to him, it's because I knew that you would be my first client. And lo and behold, that by the end of that breakfast meeting, he had asked me to prepare a shareholders agreement, look through the company documents, and provide advice. And that was really my first client. And so I've only ever worked in the big firms. So I started my articles at one of the big firms in Johannesburg. I had studied at UCT, so UCT is my alma mater. So I'm very excited to see a lot of UCT students here. So I started in a big firm. I went and did my master's in Amsterdam, and years later in my career, I went to a big firm in New York, and I practiced there. So starting a firm that is mine, was a big challenge. So I always say to people that this is the first small firm that I've worked for, but it's my small firm. And so the responsibility is a bit different. So I think there is a very, very big entrepreneurial aspect of it. A lot of it, though, is about putting the systems together. It's about having the right people. And that's probably the biggest thing, is that if you have a great team, which I do now, it makes things much better. It's making sure that also you are keeping abreast of the developments in the law. You have a strong network, you have clients, and you have clients who are paying, and that's the reality of starting a business, is that the business must make some money and you must have some profits. So there is a part of it that is, and I think that's the biggest part of it, that is about the business side of it. And therefore, as an entrepreneur, as a lawyer, you must see the opportunities. But your biggest selling point, of course, is the product. What is it that you are sending to the client? And the product is legal advice. It's sound legal advice. And so I would say that one of the things that I would advise a law student who is now a final year law student wanting to come into practice is that there's not a set way of doing things. I know a lot of people during my time when I started articles who only did articles and then started their own things. So there's no set way of how your career is going to, to how, what trajectory you're going to take. However, I would advise that you at least do you at least do articles, so you get the training of the 2 years, and perhaps you want to, be admitted, write the bar exam and be admitted. So that will be the requirement here in South Africa. You write the bar exam and then you get admitted, and that will open so many opportunities for you. I started my law firm years later, after having been in the industry in law firms and in investment banks in South Africa and in London, including New York. And only then did I start my law firm. You don't necessarily have to follow the same path, but I would say if you have a solid foundation in terms of your training, it will really assist you. Because the reality of the legal profession, particularly in a country like South Africa, and I won't speak about how other countries, it's very male dominated. And so you need to be, as a woman, as a female, there is always that perception about you not being able to make it. And I'm saying that because I practice specifically in mergers and acquisitions. And there's not a lot of women in this space. And I did, when I was in New York, for example, I was in private equity. There's not a lot of women in private equity. And so if you are solid, your foundation is solid, and basically you know what you're talking about, more doors will open for you. But if you're not, it will confirm the stereotype that women really don't belong in this space. So, and I don't think that's true. I think women belong in all spaces. So for me, that would be what I would advise. I would say that just hone your skills, whatever that skill is. Doesn't have to be in M&A, which is what I wanted to do, in whatever area of the law you choose. Prof, if you want to be an arbitrator, just be a good arbitrator, so that when you're starting your own thing, I can tell you now, it's very difficult to start your own thing because you do not have the comfort of the name of the firm. So for me, that was one of the biggest challenges, is that I no longer had the comfort of the big firms that I had articled in and I had worked in as an associate and where I trained. And therefore, to start your own thing where no one really knows you. They know you in that firm. They don't know you on your own. It was one of the challenges. But, time, over time, you build that confidence. You build a confidence in your clients. You build a confidence in, in people who want to come and join your firm and work with you. And so it's kind of a marathon. It's not a sprint, but that's the other advice I would give. It's a marathon. Your career is a marathon. It's not a sprint. You're not going to get a lot of things done quickly. You must have a long-term view of what you want to be. And I do think that there's nothing that will stop you if you have that that attitude and that mindset.
Great. Thank you so much. That's really, really good advice. And then this is a question to all three panelists. If you guys could briefly tell us how significant a role has networking played in each of your respective careers? And do you have any tips for students on how to network with professionals? Belinda, can we maybe just start with you?
Yes, sure. I think networking is a very underestimated skill. A lot of opportunities are with people. They're not necessarily going to be advertised in a newspaper. It's going to be someone that you meet at drinks. It's going to be someone that you meet through a friend. So networking is a very important part of your career in law, of you being even when you're a candidate attorney. So what I would say is that as you are coming into the space, as you are coming into law firms, there will be drinks that are hosted for clients. Please do attend those events. There would be some information sessions. Attend those events. The one critical thing that I see a lot of, particularly final year students, they are also forgetting that their peers, the people sitting around you in the lecture room, you need to network with them as well. Those are your future clients. You just don't know it yet, because not all of you are going to end up in the same place. And therefore, start learning how to network and start creating a network with your peers at varsity. You may end up with the same people through your articles, and then as you progress within law firms, and other people as they move, into in-house, into the judiciary, and into a lot of areas that the law present, a lot of opportunities. That will be your network. And your clients, once they are in-house, they will brief you if you are in a law firm. So you must never underestimate the power of the network that you already have in your lecture room. But when you are in the law firm, attend a lot of the events that are hosted by the firms, and you will build your network in that way.
Great, thank you so much. Emilia, could you please give us your thoughts on networking?
Thank you very much. I agree very much with the views that Belinda has set out already. Networking is massively important because we're social creatures and our profession is a social one. It is one of those, it's a very traditional profession across the world, not only in South Africa or Nigeria or the UK, everywhere. The legal profession is still one of those professions that there's a lot of networking, who you know, personal contacts, and that is important. And the question then becomes, how do you widen your social network? Because it's from your social network that instructions will come, and professional relationships, developing professional relationships. So I'm not going to repeat the things Belinda has said. I'm just going to add a little bit, which is on the use of technology. When we were, I was called to the bar 33 years ago. And so when I was called to the bar, we didn't have LinkedIn. And so then, emails were just beginning, early stages of emails, and we didn't have Facebook and all of those. But we now have LinkedIn. I use LinkedIn as an example. I'm sure there are others out there. But be professional, because it's not for showing off that you went to the beach or the new dress you bought. That is a different, that is not for that space. but to be professional, to use those technology or different technologies out there to talk about your career sector, what you're interested in, not about yourself. So one of the things that is becoming a little bit strange on LinkedIn is people get a new certificate and they seem to paste the certificate on LinkedIn, and I'm like, relevance, you know? And so it's what I find useful on LinkedIn is, oh, there's a new decision in your jurisdiction about XYZ, or you've read a journal article written by ABC, and this is your view. Those are the sorts of things that are important. The second thing to think about is blogging. Blogging puts you on the internet. And so if I type, I'm doing some research and I type whatever, and you've written a blog on that, your name would show up. And the more people see your name, they begin to associate your name with that particular area of the law. If something comes up, they would cite you, because these days people cite blogs, and somebody else who wants to write something on that may contact you. And that is important. You know, so what am I saying? Is how really the question we're asking is, how do you market your skills, your professional skills? And emphasis being on the word professional skills. And I think it's what is the subject area that you're interested in? What do you think that other professionals in the field will be interested in knowing? I'm heavy on promoting one's jurisdiction. It's really important. And so everywhere we cite English cases is simply because they're all over the internet. It's very easy to find them online. And so we don't know enough about what different African courts are saying about different aspects of whatever law. So if the South African Constitutional Court, Court of Appeal, whichever court, you know, comes up with a new decision, write a case summary and put it on LinkedIn, blog about it, and that will get picked up. And what it also says is that you're serious-minded about this. And the last thing I would say on this, all in addition to what Belinda has already said, is finding mentors. Mentoring is really, really, it's big because various young members groups also have mentoring going on. But any mentoring scheme has to be driven by the mentee, which means, remember that all of these mentors are very busy people. And so, you know, you need to initiate, you need to push, and you need to deliver. It is one opportunity you get. I'm going to give you an example. I get lots of people emailing me, oh, I would like to do research for you. Oh, I would want to work with you. Oh, I would want to do this. And sometimes, most times I never ever say no. I say, okay, if something comes up, I would get back to you. And 2-3 times I've gotten back to people and then they give me excuses. Like, oh, I'm very busy right now. And that's the end of that. It's not, you know, I've deleted their name from my list because they're not serious. And so the point is, you get an opportunity, you step up. Even if you have exams that you're writing, you're the one who said, I want to do some research for you. If they give you that opportunity, you step up. And if you have to stay awake all night, do something and send it to them. It doesn't have to be perfect, but do something and send it to them. In other words, there is a role for you to play, and there is a role that we have to play to support the development of your careers. Caitlin.
Thank you so much for the really practical advice. I see in the chat a lot of people are really appreciating that. Before we get to Winfred on that question, there's a few questions in the Q&A feature. Could I please ask that the panelists, for some of the questions, if you could please just type your answers. because we won't be able to get to all of them live, Emilia and Belinda, I see there are quite a few that are directed to the two of you. So while Winfred answers, I would appreciate it if you could please just type some answers to some of those questions. That's fine. Great. Thanks. And then Winfred, would you like to add anything about networking?
I believe Emilia and Belinda have done it justice. I can't stop to say that networking is everything in our profession. Just to highlight, for the young people beginning your careers, you're very smart people, but smartness alone can just get you some far. If you want to move further, you need to tap into those networks. And like Belinda and Emilia said, the networks, don't think so much of, oh, where am I going to get them? In your classrooms, there are already networks there. You've had different experiences, and you have different opportunities amongst yourselves. So you just need to let people know what you do. My classmates call me, I'm all about boys and girls because I'm into gender. So whenever they hear anything about gender, they will be in my inbox. They will be asking me, Winnie, did you see this? Have you applied for this? Do you think you can do it? So I just can't stop to say that the networks, we are not talking about networks which are very far away from you. They're just right there where you are. To build on what Emilia had said about using the technologies, the power of social media, it is okay for us to post about the food that we are eating on Facebook or on Instagram and post about that dress, but it will also be great if you're posting about what your interests are. The power of that artificial intelligence will bring other similar interests, and that's where you will get opportunities when you're posting about things that interest you, things that can drive you in your field. So for me, I would want to advocate for people to change what they use their social media for, to advocate for those things that they are so passionate about and they would want to be known for, especially if you're beginning out. You can just start slowly but surely changing what you're posting on your social media. And then I can't stop also saying that a cold email doesn't hurt anyone. So I know there is that fear, oh, I don't know this person, how can I just send them a message from LinkedIn or from a chat box, or just a cold email. Like, don't get scared about sending cold emails. Some might never be replied, but some will be replied. And just like Emilia said, when you post that you're going to do something, show up. You do it. Don't have excuses. That is what I wanted to say.
Great, thank you so much. And then Winfred, while I still have you, could you please share with us an experience that built your resilience, which I know you've had quite a few, and if you could just briefly give us one takeaway that can motivate others to keep pushing forward.
Thank you, Caitlin. I don't have an experience, a particular one to share, but I can say that I come from a very humble background, and most of the things I've gotten in life, I've had to strive for them. So my life has been about striving. If I want something, I'm going to strive and get it. That is me. So all I can say is coming from a background where things don't come easily has pushed me to be able to push boundaries. Like, I'm not scared of getting into new spaces. Yes, I can have cold feet, but I will still show up, I still show up even in my frightened nights. Takeaway, I would want to encourage the people who have logged in. When you join a new space, you have to recognize your strength. What can you do and what can you do well? And also recognize your weaknesses as a person. Then identify allies who are going to support you overcome your weaknesses, but then also support you get that strength that you have to move it forward. And allies do exist in every space that you're in. You just have to reach out to them. That is what I had to share.
Great. Thank you so much, Winfred. If you won't mind while I get to the other two, there is a question in the chat box specifically about the judiciary. If you don't mind typing out an answer to that person, I would really appreciate that, just because it's a good question and we probably won't be able to get to it. Yes, then Emilia, if you could also please just share with us an experience that built your resilience and one takeaway that can motivate others to keep pushing forward.
Okay, do you want me to share that now?
Yes, please.
Okay, so on resilience, I think we need to also recognize that we're speaking to law students. And remember what we said, this is not Usain Bolt 100 meters dash. This is a marathon. It is one day at a time, one challenge after another. And for, I think it was Belinda that already said, and I think Naigaga also mentioned the fact that it's not easy. You know, it's not easy for us women because it's a the law is male dominated. It is so bad that in Nigeria, we're all called gentlemen of the bar, including women. We're not recognized as women. We're called gentlemen of the bar. And so it is a tough path. And I'm telling you this because that is the truth. It is not an easy ride. If you're looking for an easy ride, this is not the profession for you. Because remember that people's lawyers effectively, sometimes people's lives, their very existence, whether as in financial or even human life, is in the hands of that lawyer. And so it's a very serious profession. Back to how I started out, which is it's a long distance, it's a marathon. That's the first thing. There is no shortcut. There is no easy way. You have to cut your teeth. You have to make those necessary sacrifices. That is massively important. It has to be done. So once you've reconciled yourself to the fact that I'm not going to do this and tomorrow I become a billionaire, you're halfway done. The second point is, it's not a career that if you want to pursue money. If you want to pursue money, it's investment bankers and all of those sort of people. I'm looking at Belinda now, who left the bank. Anyway, that's where the money is. You might, and because it's all relative, what we think is loads of money. If you want to become Elon Musk, then you have to become an inventor of different things. So the key thing is asking yourself, why do I want to do this? And there will be challenges in all walks of life. And so it's building that resilience. And it is that, why am I doing this, that will help you stay the course. I think for me, it's worked. Some of us, I would say, I sort of describe myself as some of us are luckier than others in the sense that, doors open, but that's a generational thing. And so our generation, we're trying to ensure that the door is open onto more women. But remember that for some of us, it was men that opened the door onto us. And that is massively important as well. Is there anything else you wanted me to pick up on, Caitlin?
That is good for now. Thank you very much. And yeah, then Belinda, if you could also share with us an experience that really taught you resilience, and if you could give us also one takeaway that will motivate us.
Yes, sure, Caitlin. I think the biggest thing for me was actually deciding that I want to be an M&A lawyer, I think 20 years ago. And 20 years ago, it looked totally different to what it looks like now. And I think there was a bit of resistance in some of the people that were meant to train and guide within the law firms. Because there was a gender stereotype and there was also a racial stereotype. But what for me made me come up, it was the realization that this is what I want to do. And so this is the path that I have chosen. And so someone else's opinion is not going to influence or change my mind about who I have said I am. And so what I did is I actually literally taught myself some of the principles. And the way life works is that the universe will meet you halfway when you have shown that you are committed, you are focused. And when you are showing up in life, life has a responsibility to meet you halfway. And so if the immediate person that is supposed to train and guide you as in your principal doesn't believe in you, there will be someone else who sees something in you. So I was lucky to have other people in the firm see something in me. And I just never gave up because I had chosen to be in commercial law. Even when I was at varsity, my subjects were commercial law. I always wanted to be in the space that I'm in now. So I would advise that believe in yourself, even when other people don't believe in you. And you will see that when you believe in yourself, it is easier, it's an easier sell than when you don't believe in yourself. So, and the universe will open up to you. Maybe not the opportunity that you had, or maybe not the person that you had said, well, this is the person who's going to train you, but someone else will come. I so strongly believe in that. I strongly believe that when you have put in the work, when you are showing up, and when you are showing up as a professional, never saying, well, this task is too low for me. I'm an LLB, graduate from such and such, or I'm an LLM graduate from such and such. This task is not too lowly for me. I will do it. So that is one of the things. And the last thing is that always be prepared to do what other people are not willing to do. Always. And you will never go wrong in going the extra mile, because someone in the firm that you are working in, someone in the organization that you are working can see that. So that would be what I advise.
Thank you so much. I'm going to be going through the questions now in the Q&A feature. I'm going to try to answer as many as possible. We don't want to go too over time just to respect everybody's time. But Belinda, let me pose Jordan's question to you. It says, what struggles do you see young women starting out in the industry facing, and what advice do you have for them in overcoming those struggles?
So one of the big struggles is, I think, is the lack of self-belief. That's number one, because it can and it will be intimidating. As you know, as even Prof. Emilia has mentioned, that it is male dominated. It is intimidating to be called a gentleman when you are not a gentleman. And maybe that is the idea behind, is to show you that you don't belong in that space. But the biggest challenge is the fact that women already can see that they are not welcome in the space. So how you overcome that challenge is to seek mentors, and they will come to you when you when you do the work. Seek a mentor, seek people who are going to guide you. I think it's so important for women. And I learned this the hard way in my career. It's so important for women to know that it's not always your work that speaks for itself. It is very important to network, especially within law firms. Within law firms, it's really about your network. And later on in your career, you will learn the value of a sponsor. But we're not going to, I think we need another webinar, Caitlin. Prof, we need another webinar.
Let's do it.
Because those things are so important in your career as you start out in your career, to have a mentor, because invariably you will make mistakes. But when you have a mentor, those mistakes may not be fatal. Because you know, when I got into the firm in New York, the big firm in New York, one of the things that people used to say, and it was a joke, but it's very true, is that what you say and do can and will be used against you. And so it's so important that you surround yourself, as a last point, surround yourself with the right people, whether it's your peers as well as your immediate superiors. Surround yourself with the right people, because it can either help or hurt your career.
Oh, thank you for those hard truths. Yeah, really, thank you. That's really good. Okay, this next question I think is most appropriate for Winfred to answer. It says, what are some of the roles and challenges that you would have as a consultant, and what are some of the skills required to be a consultant?
I'm not sure. I think we've lost Winfred, Caitlin. I don't see her on the...
I am back on.
Oh, you're here. Oh, okay, perfect.
Yes, you did lose me for a minute. Well, all right. Thank you, Caitlin. What was the question again? What challenges
have you faced as a consultant, and what are some of the skills required to be a consultant?
I think my biggest challenge is that consultants are time bound, and I never have enough time to do the work and do it well, because I'm quite of a perfectionist. You want to hand in work that is crispy, that makes you proud. But since many of them are time bound, you know, they give you consultants for 30 days, for 60 days, I find that sometimes I don't hand in the best version of my work. I hand in what can pass, is what I can say. That is my biggest challenge. What skills? I believe we've talked about this earlier in this webinar, of try to see who is good at a particular subject that you're working on. Because with consultancies, when you get the first one, it's automatic that you get the second one and the third one, and until when you can't get enough of them. But what you need to see is that if you're doing a certain consultancy and you're not good in that area, can you identify someone who can leverage that gap, you know, that knowledge and skill gap, and call upon them and share the resources to be able that you put your name to very good work, not what you think is good, but what others also, you know, can say this is very good work. So for me, the skill is asking for help. I don't know which kind of skill is that is. Like, you need to ask for help where you feel you will not be great at something, because we can't know everything. We just can't know everything, and fields are emerging every day. I could write from this perspective, and yet someone else has seen another perspective. So you need to have different people to gear you towards what is new, what is crispy, what is great to put your name upon. Yeah.
Great, thank you so much. The next question, I think Belinda would probably be able to answer this. It's from Wendy. It says, if I do an LLM internationally, for example, in Canada? Will I be able to use it in South Africa? Belinda, do you perhaps know?
Yes, I can answer that. I did an LLM in international business law in Amsterdam, and I used it in South Africa. So I would say that so long as your LLM is not specific to that jurisdiction, you can use it anywhere. And typically LLM programs are international. So the skills that you learn there, you can use in your jurisdiction. As I said, mine was, but within the masters itself, there was an international part of it, and I use it in South Africa. You may not use it immediately. Also, please be open to the fact that you may not use it immediately, but over the long run of your career, you'll definitely use it.
Great, thank you so much. Yeah, that's really helpful. The next one is directed at Winfred. So it says, for those interested in pursuing a career as a judge or magistrate, how important would you say it is to start out with private practice beforehand, or to start out as a court registrar? I know, Winfred, that you became a magistrate very early on, so I'm not sure how much practice you had, but yeah, what do you think? Winfred, do we have you?
Don't matter where you begin from. And different jurisdictions have different ways of how you join into the judiciary. But I'm quite aware that most of the jurisdictions, the judiciary is a sum of very many people from diverse fields. It's a sum of people from civil society, from academia, from private practice. There are people like me who have grown through, you enter from the entry level and then you grow through the ranks. So it does not matter for me where you begin from. What matters is, what are you bringing to the table? Academics bring to the table very good analysis of a judgment. People from civil society bring a lot of activism to the bench. People from private practice bring a lot of jurisprudence in procedure for the bench. So everyone has something to offer the bench. It does not matter, from my opinion, where you begin from. What matters is, when you're on the bench, what are you going to bring to the bench?
Great, thank you so much. The next one I will direct to Emilia. Emilia, I'm not sure how much of an introvert or extrovert you are, but you are a professor, so you should be able to give us some sound advice here. Says, thank you. I would like to ask the panelists, how can you be a good lawyer while you are an introvert? So when you're too scared to talk in public or to express your ideas publicly. So Emilia, do you have any advice for us there?
I would try, and not all lawyers are advocates. I think that's really important. We do have transactional lawyers. We have lawyers who do the backroom work. So they draft contracts, they enter into negotiations, and that's really important. And some of them do research. So again, yeah, there is a role there, and confidence, public speaking, you grow as you do it. It's one of those things, the more you do, the better you get at it. Everybody has nerves, and then you find your own way of dealing with nerves. And if you're a student, I would suggest that if you have a debating group in your university, to engage with that. If you can ask questions, there's absolutely no reason why you can't ask questions in class, because remember that your colleagues are there, and you raise your hand and ask the question. You can start by writing out the question, so you read out the question. It doesn't matter if your voice shakes. You do it, and the next time you remind yourself that you didn't die when you did it the first time. You're still alive. And that's a good sign that you're still breathing. And then you gradually, you get at it. They are very quiet people. It's not all lawyers that are loud and all of that. Most of us are not loud. We all talk a lot, but we're not loud. And so they're different. So I hope that will be helpful, but you have to try things out.
Thank you so much. And I think that's also great advice for the introverts who are a bit scared to speak in class. I'll definitely pass that along. Emilia, I also want to direct another question to you. It's from Monica in Kenya. And Monica's asking, what areas in law are likely to see growth in the next few years? And it also says, what criteria can we use to know which area of law to go into?
Okay, so on criteria, we already talked about what you're passionate about, what your interests are. And of course, we shouldn't forget what you're taught. What subjects are you being taught in your university? And what can you see? What needs can you see around you, the environment where you are? Where are the gaps? What needs are there? So that those are ideas to think about. Then the future internationally, just thinking about cross-border transactions, ESGs, things around the environment, climate change, technology, things around health, things around water, availability and access to water, to power, even with the Russian invasion of Ukraine. International criminal law is still on the cards. International law is being challenged all the time. And those are really, really important areas of the law. But that is at the international level. There was another question around somebody who said they're passionate about children's law and IP. And so you think about it, if you live in a jurisdiction where you feel that there isn't a lot of protection for children's rights and vindication of those rights, maybe that is something that's an area for you to seriously consider. The point about the research is asking yourself, where is there a gap? Where can I fit in? Because if you just do all the general, maybe family law or something, and there are 1,100,000 other practitioners, the place will be saturated. It might be difficult for you to get a job in that area. Again, conversely, it might be one where there's a great need. And so that even though there are loads of lawyers in that field, it's still not enough. So each jurisdiction differs, and that's the research that needs to be done. Kathleen, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Thank you very much. Yeah, that was great. I think I will pose this next question to Belinda. It says, would you advise one to pursue a master's before acquiring a practicing license, so passing the bar? And it says, how does one choose which direction to go in terms of a master's before they're exposed to the industry? Do you have any tips?
Actually, I did my master's before I qualified as an attorney, before I did my bar exam. Simply because the opportunity came, I got an opportunity, and I couldn't miss it. And so what I would say is, if the law firm that you are in is supportive, which my law firm was, which my principal was, excuse me, then go for it. What is important though is that you do not go ahead of the law firm that you are in. Always nurture relationships, always make sure that you finish what you started. Because if you are going to go and do a master's before you do your bar exam, you may be coming back to the law firm and finishing your articles, which is something that happened to me. And it doesn't have to be the way it happened with me. You can remember what you can do in South Africa is you can interrupt your articles and then proceed. But very important, you will need the approval of the Legal Practice Council, because the rule is that you can't be away from your principal's office for more than 30 days. And so you will need the consent of the Legal Practice Council. So long as all the regulatory requirements, you get the support of the law firm, I would say that, and that opportunity has, come up then by all means take it.
Great, thank you very much. So I believe everybody can see all the answered questions. There's quite a few questions that are similar that many of our panelists have answered in the Q&A function. I'm going to ask one more question and then we're going to have to close off because we are running over time. But yeah, thank you to our panelists. This has really been fantastic. The last question I would like to ask is, let me see. It says, what types of extracurricular activities or work should one be going into to get good internships in general, but also in the human rights field, particularly as a student? Belinda, you've done a bit of the human rights stuff, so maybe you can answer us, and I'd say that would be our last question.
Thanks, Caitlin. So mine was a bit different because I went into human rights while I was away, while I was not in South Africa. And there's nothing stopping, the world is a village now. I think Prof has mentioned that we didn't have these opportunities of technology that you have now and that you need to take advantage of. But I would say that whether you want to do the internship locally or abroad or even in the continent, there's a lot of opportunities within the continent. By the way, you don't even have to go to Europe or to the US. You can have a lot of opportunities within there's so much happening everywhere, and it's all human rights centered if that's what you are interested in. And so locally, the United Nations, who we've been privileged, by the way, to do some work for in our firm, they have an office here in South Africa, if you are based in South Africa. But if in any jurisdiction that you are in, try and find out if the UN has got a local office. And for example, you don't even have to be in the UN. You can do human rights by reaching out to a law firm that specializes in human rights. You can reach out to an NGO that specializes in human rights. But what is critical, and I think all panelists have said this, research, and more research. It shows in the interview, and it shows that you are interested. It shows that you have done the work. It also shows that you are interested. And half the time, and I think that other panelists can confirm this, when people see that you've done the work, they will be willing and able to meet you halfway.
Great, thank you so much. Thank you, Belinda. Thank you, Winfred. Thank you, Emilia. All of you were wonderful. You all had such amazing advice. I'm sure all of us really appreciate your wisdom. UCT Women in Law and the Institute for African and Women in Law, we're both so grateful that you have taken time out of your busy schedules to attend to this. And just a very big thank you from all of us. For all our attendees, please note that this has been recorded and you can go to IAWL's YouTube page to see it. Thank you to everyone for your support, everyone who has attended. And just a big thank you also to the Institute for African Women in Law for collaborating with UCT Women in Law. We are a brand new society, so we really appreciate it. And thank you for letting me moderate this. Have a lovely evening further, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you, Caitlin.